Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Debrief here on FingerLakes1.com and FL1 Radio. It is almost Election Day, and we're talking politics, voter turnout, some of the key races in the area, and much more. Jackie Augustine is not here with me today, but we have a new face filling in for Jackie. Rachel Midey, thank you so much for being here.
I'm excited to be here, back in my hometown, Seneca Falls.
Old Seneca Falls. Yeah, so we're here in Seneca Falls. Where might people hear you or know you from, if some of our listeners do recall your voice or know that face?
If people know me, it might be from watching my station, Big Fox. I'm down in Corning, New York, Steuben County.
Corning?
Corning, yes, glass capital of the world. I'm a multimedia journalist, which means I do it all. I set up my interviews, I interview the people, I film myself, I edit it, I write the script for the anchors. So that's the new age of broadcast journalism. You have to do it all. So I'm really excited to be here talking about elections. I went to Hofstra University on Long Island, only university to host 3 presidential debates consecutively. I was actually there for the last one, Clinton-Trump. So I love debates. I actually just moderated my first debate.
Yes, and we're going to talk about that because that debate was awesome.
Thank you. Did you watch it?
I did.
It's on YouTube. So you can watch it.
It's interesting because it felt like there was a lot of overlap. So walk us through who the players were and what the office was, and then we'll get into sort of the meat and bones.
So it was the Chemung County Executive debate. And the reason why it's so important is because it's the first time that the position has been contested in 28 years. And I know. And was 3 really notable candidates. Democratic candidate Jerome Emanuel, Independence candidate Mike Cruzan, and Republican candidate Chris Moss, Sheriff Chris Moss. And they're all really well known in the community. We were the only televised debate. It went live on the radio first and then was rebroadcast on my station. But, it was the only place to hear the candidates really debating each other. And I think that's the best way to figure out if you like a candidate or not. You can go to their websites. You can check out their flyers. But really, in my opinion, the best way is to watch them debate each other.
So before we jump into the specifics of that debate, I want to throw the softball to you. Why don't we have more debates? What's going wrong in our system to get us to a point where in some cases you don't get any exposure at all to the candidates and voters are left making kind of
just voting along party lines? Yeah. I don't know. I feel like people have a harder time dealing with opinions that they don't agree with. There's a lot of bubbles now, right? So I feel like on social media, it's very easy to block anybody with an opinion different than yours. You tend to then get used to only seeing people who agree with you, and then coming face to face with somebody who doesn't is like upsetting, I guess, to people. I think you should totally be emerged with people who you disagree with. I think it's great to have that dialogue. But yeah, no, I would love to see more debates. That's my favorite part about election season.
It's a risk, probably, for a lot of candidates.
Yeah.
So what were some of the key issues in the debate that you moderated? And do you think that the voters really got a good feel for what was going on and where the candidates landed?
Well, I think it was really good to have this debate because one of the candidates, Mike Cruzan, he originally was running as a Republican, and then he changed to independence. So there was probably some people wondering who they wanted to vote for, and between those two. So it was good for people to be able to see them in the same room debating each other. But did you ask what were some of the key issues?
Yeah, what do you think, like the tour, and this can even be broader, throwing it out to just in general, what you're hearing or what you're seeing, what are the things that people are worrying about down there?
Right, so I don't live in Chemung County. My co-moderator, Frank, he doesn't live in Chemung County either. So we actually created a Gmail account for residents of Chemung County to email us questions, and we used the most frequently asked questions. The most frequently asked was what their position was on consolidating police forces. We did that in Seneca Falls, right? We got rid of, did we?
No. So in Seneca Falls, there's still the Seneca Falls Police Department. It just, when the village dissolved, it covered the town as well. So now it's the town of Seneca Falls Police Department. But there are still, so you still have 3 law enforcement entities in Seneca County right now.
So that was one of the big concerns from residents, shared services to be more efficient and cut costs. Another one was the Chemung County executive's salary is about $165,000 a year. And that
That's
voted themselves
with 3 zeros after.
Yeah, and they voted themselves a pay increase. The legislature, the county executive, and that comes at the same time. And so the city of Elmira is in Chemung County, and that's the same year that Elmira experienced a 17% property tax increase. So people were upset about that. They wanted to hear if the candidates would cut their salaries if they were elected. Trying to think, what else did people...
Well, and Elmira, for the folks who might not be totally well-versed in what's going on in the southern tier, is in really bad financial shape, the city itself, correct?
Right. A lot of Elmira residents really trace it back to the flood they had in 1972. They claim Elmira was booming before Hurricane Agnes, I think it was. Yeah. Came through, it destroyed
72 or 73, something like that. Yeah.
It destroyed most of the southern tier. Corning was really lucky to have Corning Inc., their big Fortune 500 company that helped build it back up. Elmira didn't have such a company, so they claim it's just kind of been struggling ever since. It was actually just one website just put out a survey that said that it was in America's worst 400 small towns, and I think last year they were the heroin capital of New York State. So they're struggling, and that was another question about repairing the relationship between Chemung County and the city of Elmira, because I think there's some tension there.
Well, I wouldn't argue with anybody who does genuinely believe that it traces back that far, but I would just caution there were a whole lot of, or there have been a whole lot of economic changes in the state of New York over the last what is now 40 years. I don't really think I don't think it's fair quite yet to point to a flood that happened in 72 and say that this is the reason why Elmira failed. Now I can understand if things were booming before that, why people would think that, but is that the issue when you look at the southern tier, that sort of economic issue? Is that the one that is crossing the county lines, and is that the one that most people are talking about right now down there?
The economic issue?
The economic issues, like just the whether it's jobs, whether it's workforce development. We hear a lot about these, especially now with the state legislature races. But it isn't. Is that the big issue? Yeah,
it's poverty and crime, and they are getting jobs added. They just opened up a Wayfair back in July. I just went to the ribbon cutting of that. It's phenomenal, really nice, kind of like those places you would see in the city where there's ping pong tables and free Starbucks, and they care about the quality of life for their workers. They added about 500 jobs. I think there are jobs being added, but there's so much crime. And, Elmira, if you look at the downtown, there's just a ton of vacant buildings that if you put in one business in the middle, it's on either side, and above it, it's empty. So it's kind of hard trying to figure out how to revitalize an entire downtown, an entire city. They just added a medical school at Elmira College.
Right. Yeah.
So that could help, but.
So I'm curious then. Obviously, we hear a lot about this sort of the disconnect between upstate and downstate. I'm curious if the southern tier feels kind of left out in that they seem to be even less talked about than the main portion of upstate New York and Western New York.
Yes and no, because I do look at it like where I am, Steuben County, Corning has this huge Fortune 500 company, has Corning Inc., which we did not have in Seneca Falls. So they have they have a lot of money there, really cute downtown. And honestly, I see the politicians more down in Corning than I ever saw them up here. Both of the candidates for Congress have offices right on Market Street in Corning, where my office is. So I don't know if I do think that they're left out that much. I mean, I don't know. Upstate New York is sprawling. It's so big that, and
inclusive.
Yeah, and because I've never even been to like the Plattsburgh,
right?
That area.
It is literally the rest of it. Really, it's not upstate. It's the rest of New York.
Yeah, but I do have, I guess, kind of a unique view since I went to school on Long Island and I was there for quite a few years. It's completely different.
So, what has been your feeling then? Let's talk about the race for governor. Obviously, Governor Cuomo looking for number 3, going for that 3rd term. Some people think maybe to set up for that run for president in 2020. Obviously, in the last couple of weeks, he's been touring, hitting all of the airports with the work. Syracuse, he was in Rochester, he was down your way a couple days ago.
No, actually, well, he was at Ithaca not too long ago, but I thought I was going to see Governor Cuomo again. I thought he would be at the Elmira Corning Regional Airport. They just got all these renovations. It's very nice. I thought he was going to be there, but then we were alerted that it was actually going to be the lieutenant governor. So it was Kathy Hochul. I spoke with her. But no, he wasn't there. But I think he is trying to make more stops upstate. We didn't hear it mentioned. In the debate between Cuomo and Molinaro, I think they had one upstate question, and it was about
the Bills.
The Bills stadium.
The Bills.
So, no, I think it's left out quite a bit.
So then, the most recent debate, does it hurt him that he didn't participate? Obviously, 4 others did. He did not. My feeling has been basically that he's the one who's helped most by it. Everyone else is there beating each other up. And he just gets to slide right by. And, now I wonder if people are even thinking about it now.
Right.
Do they even remember that he wasn't at the debate 2 or 3 nights ago?
I don't think it hurts him at all. And actually, I was reading an article saying that him not being there just hurt the debate. They got a lot less viewership than they would have if he was there. So no, I don't think it hurts him at all, really. And
so now this goes back to the question about voter turnout. Is obviously there's a lot of talk about a blue wave, but the race for governor's races are kind of insulated from that, I feel like, right? Because you're talking about different issues. You aren't talking about national issues. You aren't talking about Congress. You aren't talking about Senate. And it feels like that's where this whole blue wave narrative has really been focused, especially since the tax plan was passed and that sort of thing. Obviously, a lot of people have taken notice of Mark Molinaro, the Republican candidate, but does that mean that he has less of a chance now? And the more I think about it, I don't think it changes much for that race, right?
Right.
Blue wave or not.
Voter turnout. So I was thinking about it before I came here. I was thinking about how many of my friends are going to vote, and I feel like, gosh, only like a handful, maybe 5. I don't think young people are going out and voting in this race. What do you think? Are your friends, besides your journalism friends? Right,
and see, it's every time I see something on Twitter about the millennial voter turnout, I chuckle and I keep scrolling because it's like it's this mythical thing that you can't put your finger on it. There hasn't been any meaningful turnout, I don't think, in terms of young people since maybe 2008. That might have been the last time that there was a meaningful increase. I certainly don't think they're going to get interested during a midterm cycle.
Right. That's what I was going to say. Presidential, maybe they'll go out and vote, but midterms, I don't know. I'm not very hopeful. It hurts me to say that, but
well, and the other thing too is, I mean, I think this turns into it's not accessibility. Mm-hmm. It's the ease of voting. So it's like, how long do we have to keep muddling through the system that we have now before we take all of this technology, all of these great things that we have going for us, and actually update the way people cast ballots?
Right.
It's insane. Like, why on earth, with as many inconsistencies as exist now in the way people vote and how each state sort of regulates it or doesn't regulate it, it seems really wild to me that we can't get this thing moving in the other direction to get more people to vote. Whether that means opening it up so that everybody has early voting access, or incorporating some piece of technology,
mailing in. I think some states are only. Colorado might be you only mail it in now.
The absentee ballot process has become a complete joke, right? Because anybody can get an absentee. It used to be, when I remember back to when I was a kid and listening to my parents talk about how difficult it was then to get an absentee ballot. You had to it was almost like you had to show proof that you were going on vacation or something like that. Now it's like, if you just don't want to go vote that day, you can just get an absentee ballot.
Yeah, and I don't think many people think of it until it's the day before election, so they're like, oh, I need an absentee. It's like, no, you have to. I know in New York, I think it's October 30th was the last day to send it in. It had to be postmarked by then.
You have to request it, and then you have to be given, and then...
Yeah. But you can, if you already got your absentee, you could bring it in until, I think, the last hour of polling.
Yeah, it just has to be postdated that or postmarked that day.
Yeah.
So you can even mail it in as long as it's in the mail and it has the postmark that says election day on it.
Yeah.
Not
do you agree with people when they say that they feel election day should be a national holiday?
Maybe if more than 30% of our population turned out to vote.
Yeah.
Right? Like, come on. To me it is. Mm-hmm. It's like the Super Bowl on steroids. Mm-hmm. For a journalist, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Especially since it's at the end of a really long, arduous 2-3 months for the people in this business.
Right.
But I don't know. I just my concern at this point is that it seems like absentee ballots have been used as an early voting mechanism or as a means to get more people to vote, and it's like that's not what that was for.
Right.
That's not. No.
I was talking to a teacher, and I cannot remember who it was. I'm trying to think of the name. I can't remember. But she was saying that she tried to spark an early interest in her students to vote. And she would say, okay, everybody stand up, you sit down. She was trying to say that only 1 in 5 people go out and vote. So she would say, okay, you guys missed... You guys didn't think of it. You didn't take off work. You couldn't go. Sit down. You guys didn't register to vote. You guys blah, blah, blah. And then the ones left standing, she was like, well, those were the only ones who vote. Do you know these people? Do you trust them? They're deciding who your elected officials are. They're deciding everything for you. You really need to all go out. I don't know. I just don't think people our age are even interested in... Yes, maybe presidential, but smaller elections, okay. I'm not sure.
I'll take that and say good segue.
Yeah.
Because I do want to talk about that. Young people not just voting, but getting involved with politics.
Oh, getting involved. Okay. Actually
getting involved. Because I think that's another big stumbling block for our generation is that a lot of, if someone that, looked like you or looked like somebody that a 20 to 25-year-old could relate to was running, I think the engagement with that voter base would be totally different.
Totally.
It's hard to get on board with somebody who's, and I hate to sound like, it's only an age thing, but someone who's
out of
50,
touch.
60 years old.
Yeah.
Still uses a flip phone, doesn't really understand, without their aide's help, like how to do certain things.
Yeah.
And I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. I'm just saying, in general, there are representatives across the board who operate like that.
Yeah. And it's crazy how quickly people get out of touch with being able to relate to young people and getting them interested. And I do totally believe if we had some younger politicians, that would totally spark the interests of people our age to go out and vote.
And there have been, through this cycle, there have been some young people who've, who've broken that stereotype or that norm, and they've gotten involved. But I don't know that they've been the right kinds of candidates who, can really unite a large base.
Yeah.
Either way, though, and I don't know that one or two sort of one-off candidates, I'm not sure if that actually does the trick anyway.
Yeah.
I think it takes a whole bunch of young people running and getting involved to actually sort of make that group say, hey, maybe I should be voting.
And not just on Facebook. Not just getting involved on Facebook. I think you actually have to get out there and...
Well, are we at a point now where can we say, unless the whole United States gives in to Facebook and just lets them manage our voting, is that the only way young people are going to get involved?
I don't know. Maybe we need to move to Instagram.
I do. You know what? I thought it was interesting. A buddy of mine that I see a lot during the summer on the golf course. He works in tech, and he said, I don't understand why nobody's thought of just going to the American Idol system.
Yeah.
Text in, call in, you get 10 votes per just open up the floodgates.
Yeah.
And it's completely radical. It's completely ridiculous. I know it would never work. It would never happen.
It'd make it more interesting, for sure.
You would undoubtedly get more people involved. Mm-hmm. But it's, of course, you'd turn off all the folks who want to, point to the sanctity of how the system works and, voter ID and all that kind of thing.
And then you might go to... just voting for whoever's the kookiest or the craziest or gets your attention the most.
Right. Yeah, I'm not saying it would be a perfect system, but interesting concept, because I think people are that desperate to see more people vote that they're almost willing to think about or to hear anything.
Yeah. I think the system's antiquated. I think we need to update our systems all the time. Everything in our world is changing. Why not the... way we vote? And
isn't this the ideal opportunity to do it too, since we have the whole question about security of our elections anyway?
Right. Yeah.
So we're gonna have to overhaul the system to make sure that Russia or China or Iran or whoever can't hack in, or anybody here from the U.S. Can't actually infiltrate our systems.
Yeah.
Why not also overhaul the method or the way that people go about it?
Yeah, I totally agree. So that point, though, would almost make me steer away from voting being online or whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah, and, then you would get into a lot of integrity issues, because, of course, the person who loses is going to come back with,
somebody hacked into it, Mm-hmm.
Speaking of not being real, fake news.
Yeah.
we love hearing about fake news.
Yeah.
Do you think it's going to impact... Do you think it's going to impact turnout at all on Tuesday? Or do you think it's just impacting the way people engage with it? Because I have a theory that one side, because of the whole fake news debate, is going to be really amped up about getting out there and voting, while the other side is going to be a little bit despondent and a little bit less engaged. And it's close. You're talking, and there wouldn't really be any way to measure it afterwards, so we won't know.
Yeah.
Maybe some exit polling, but I don't know if we really bank too much on that.
I know. We're entering this age where anytime anyone posts an article, a news article about a candidate on Facebook, you go to the comments section and you see there is automatically going to be people commenting that it's fake if it's against their candidate, or it's biased if it's against their candidate.
Or even if it's just about anything that they don't agree with.
Exactly, yeah. And I do think that will... Do I think it will affect voter turnout? I don't know. Possibly.
I like I say, I worry that it energizes one side, the side that is most interested in the whole idea of fake news. And I think the other side, the more dismissive side of that notion, is a little less engaged.
Yeah.
And I think it goes against the whole blue wave idea, because you would think that the Democrats or the people who vote that way would be most interested in quelling that. And the way you quell that, it seems right now, is by voting blue, at least according to some people. So, where does that, I mean, I don't know. I just see a scenario where it could impact it impacts the way we do our jobs every day, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, the fact that now we have to actually think about and screen things before we post them to social media.
Right.
And you can't just post a headline. You have to really give context, and you have to be really mindful of the way you're wording it, and God, even sometimes featured images and things like that. It's like, good Lord.
Yeah.
What happened to people just wanting information and reading the story?
Right. And I go back and forth always. I'm back and forth between thinking, were these opinions always there and people just didn't have the platform before social media? Like, are we just seeing them now because social media exists and not every single person had a platform before? Or is it because the country's so divided? Is social media causing part of the division? I don't know. I think there's so many factors, and we're really in this experimental stage still with social media and how our society's dealing with it.
See, I feel the exact opposite.
You feel the exact opposite?
I feel like we're at a tipping point. I feel like we're just about to a point where social media is going to become irrelevant. Facebook.
Really?
Yeah, Facebook is burning itself out.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I literally, and I know I'm not alone, because I was scrolling through Twitter, and one of the things that popped up was try deleting Facebook off of your phone for 30 days.
I know a lot of people who do that, actually.
The person who posted it said you won't reinstall it.
Oh.
And sure enough, I deleted it. I did it myself, and it's gone. It didn't come back. There's just no, Twitter is where you can really get good information, news-wise. And it's condensed.
Yeah.
There's no, you trim all the fat.
Yeah.
Instagram is where young people are going. That's where they're, Snapchat is kind of becoming the new social platform of choice for a lot of...
See, I think Snapchat is going downhill in popularity. Now that you can post stories on your Instagram, I think that Snapchat is losing its purpose a little.
Boy, you know what the X factor, though, with Snapchat is that it's primarily a messaging platform. So it's almost like it replaces,
you're right.
It replaces the need for text messaging and things like that. It's weird that it's considered a piece of social media like Instagram or Twitter, because it doesn't have a feed.
Well, they moved to that new format where it's not chronological.
Right.
Oh, God, I hate that.
It's aggravating.
And Instagram did that. It's so that you constantly keep refreshing.
Right.
You can't scroll through your timeline and you've seen everything and you're out of it. They do that format so that you'll log back in more. Right.
And I will say this, people listening right now, they're probably saying, this is supposed to be talking politics. What the hell? No, actually, you know what? I have seen a ton of political ads on Instagram in the last 3 weeks. I think I've seen...
Yeah. Oh, yes, I have too.
This Tom Reed ad keeps popping up in my feed literally every time I scroll through. It's like the fourth thing I see.
I've seen Reed and Metrano, both on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook.
Oh, yeah. It makes sense. I mean, that is maybe less Facebook than, your more reliable
on
voter
Hulu
base.
And on Netflix as well.
Really?
Yeah. A lot.
That's fascinating.
You don't use streaming services?
I do, but not frequently enough to actually...
Oh my gosh, so much. And
really?
I work at a TV station, and I feel like there's less TV ads, more streaming services, social media. Yeah.
So I'll put you in the hot seat on that one.
Okay.
Are TV ads too negative?
Totally.
I
think so. Absolutely. I mean, the negative ad is relatively No. I think it started...
They're very cinematic. They're dark.
Yeah.
They're very like...
And I wonder if they have an effect. I mean, I don't feel like I'm really sold by ads that much.
Our generation isn't.
Our generation, yeah.
But I do think ours isn't.
Yeah, I do think other people are.
The generation that grew up with TV, I could see that being the case.
I'm going to be honest. Sometimes when I see a negative ad that's a candidate puts out, it makes me dislike the candidate more for putting that out there. But then a lot of the times they're sponsored by political action committees and they don't actually come from the candidate.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know. That's the one thing I'm glad about election season almost being over is the negativity. I said that, my favorite part is the debates. I love debates, but I'm kind of, are you ready to have it over or do you love it?
Absolutely.
You're ready?
I'm ready I was ready for it to be over the day after primaries.
Yeah.
It's because it started so early this year with the Democratic primary for the congressional races happening in like June. It was like June 26th, I think, the last Tuesday of June.
Yeah.
And that started it. And really it had started like a month and a half before that. I had all 5 of the Democratic candidates for the 23rd congressional district on my program. And it was a grind. It's a grind because when you stretch it out that far, I also think you get into a lot of fatigue in terms of what people are willing to listen to. And we see it in the numbers when we're publishing stories, we're publishing, and you see the numbers, and that first time the reader or the listener or the viewer is exposed to that person, it's here. And then the next time it's here, and then it's here, and you do get sort of, I think, that descending effect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just in terms of what people, and that going back to tying it back to the commercials, I think a lot of people, you listen to some people and they'll say, well, I mute it. When I see something negative like that, I just mute it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's interesting, but I don't know that, the political action committees, that seems to be a major point of contention for a lot of candidates on both sides. There does seem to need to be some reform there. Just to tie up the loose ends and keep things clean. Obviously, that would then go into campaign finance reform and the LLC loophole and all the things.
They'll just find more loopholes.
Loves to talk about, so I'm not going to talk about it.
Yeah.
So one last thing for me on this whole fake news thing.
Yeah.
We hear it and see it, and we hear it from elected officials. I've heard it from even a town supervisor here in Seneca County. I think Donald Trump, when he was elected and sort of picked the media as I don't want to say a target, but as something to distract people from the things that are actually going on, I think he found an effective vehicle to allow himself some space to govern, if that makes sense. So by creating this circus with the media that he has, the rivalry, it's created this scenario where he's almost off on an island by himself. And you can do more of the things that you want to do behind closed doors because everybody is concerned about this fight that's happening over here.
Right.
And I think we've seen that duplicated sometimes at the state level and sometimes at the local level. I will say this, it drives me crazy that people, and I'm not saying I'm a Trump supporter, but listening to people complain about the way he treats the media while Governor Cuomo has a very, very shaky at best track record with the media is almost sad. It's almost sad.
Okay.
I mean, he was joking about throwing dirt on reporters a couple weeks ago when he was at the Tompkins County for the airport. There are just some things that get overlooked, and I understand that totally different ballgame. Still, it creates a distraction. It's something that people are talking about that, then they're not talking about the substance,
right?
And
I think the media has to be careful with that, what they choose to cover. Are you covering little petty things that are distracting from the real issues just because you feel like you're in a rivalry?
Shiny objects.
Yeah. There are some articles, Melania Trump's clothing or whatnot, that I just think, oh my gosh, I don't need a notification about this. I think you guys are getting really distracted by the low-hanging fruit there.
And that's been the trend in news overall.
Yeah.
I mean, digital has really been a big culprit, in just sort of perpetuating the fires, the accidents,
right.
the shootings, the things that, aren't as much substance, but at the same time, it doesn't mean substance doesn't exist. It's still there. It's
still there. It just gets covered up, especially since everyone now has such a short attention span and they want to be able to refresh and get a whole new slew of articles. They're getting covered up by some of the filler ones or the ones with less substance, and it's distracting from real problems, policy, and stuff like that.
How about this problem? Uncontested races. So we went through, for our election night coverage, we break down all the races and we create graphics and all that kind of stuff. And while I was going through, because this is the only time I would ever actually think about this, I'm going through the spreadsheet of all the races, and I sort them by number of candidates, and all of a sudden I see that 75% of the races that are happening this cycle are uncontested.
Really?
In Wayne, Seneca, Cayuga, Schuyler, Yates, Tompkins, and Ontario counties.
Really?
Uncontested.
What types of races?
Pretty much any kind of race you can imagine. Now, most of these are, I'll say, town justice. There's a couple random supervisor races, town clerks, county clerks, that kind of thing. But they're elected positions.
Yeah.
And it's I get it. A lot of people aren't crazy about the whole idea of, how does a Democratic town clerk operate any differently than a Republican town clerk? They're just the clerk.
Yeah.
They just do the job. It's kind of like the same thing with the highway department superintendent. How does a Democrat pave roads compared to a Republican? They don't. They just pave roads. Right. But it's interesting because it's is there just literally that little interest?
Yeah.
In public office of any kind or public jobs?
Yeah. See, down in my county, for Steuben County, we have an assemblyman, Phil Palmisano. Nobody really runs against him because he's just really well liked across party lines, I think. Do you feel like you're seeing
Assembly Minority Leader Brian Kolb? He was just on my program this past week, and that interview is going to be going up tomorrow morning, or while you're watching this, Sunday morning. Same thing. He's running unopposed. Yeah. And he is pretty much appreciated on all sides.
Yeah. Do you think that there's maybe candidates who don't feel from the opposite party as the incumbent who just think it's pointless, they're not going to win?
I think it's interesting because it actually, to me, seems like, and we've seen this locally with a couple races, where the party itself will actively choose to not get involved. And when they choose not to get involved, the people or the prospective candidates are sort of iced out.
Yeah.
It's hard to get, if you're a Democrat and your county party has decided that they aren't going to get involved in a race. Yeah. Because maybe they kind of, 50% support the Republican and 50%, don't, so that the meat in the middle is going to be just not doing anything.
Yeah.
Jackie will always tell me, that's doing the disservice to the community or to the voters.
Yeah.
And I get it, but at the same time, I have no idea how you peel that back and correct it, because there again, some of these races, I remember 2 years ago, Manchester, the town of Manchester in Ontario County, I believe it was Manchester, I may be wrong, they had something like 30-something votes for a winner in a race.
Wow.
it was like a.
It wasn't primaries.
It was like a town council. Oh no, general election. If you go through the Board of Election websites and you look at some of these really small communities, Red Creek in Wayne County had two years ago had 2 village board seats open, only 1 person running.
That's so sad. Wow. Yeah, I don't really have an answer for that. I guess.
And there again, you're talking about, we're getting into the weeds of political engagement and how do you get people. I just don't think that any of our elected officials really understand how to crack that code, and I'm not sure anybody does know how to crack that code.
I think there are times where I think, oh, would I ever want to run for politics? And then I think about how negative and ugly smear campaigns have been and stuff like that, and I think, I don't know if I'd want to go through that. That could dissuade people a little bit.
Well, and you trade in, you're trading in any private life that you have.
Exactly.
And it's a schedule, it's a grind. Even, frankly, one of the things that I've always talked about is, town supervisor. That is probably the most influential position in a board of supervisors system. So the counties that don't have legislatures and that have board of supervisors instead.
Yeah.
The town supervisor in every community is effectively the most powerful person, but in a lot of communities, I'll use Seneca as an example, you're talking about people who are getting paid between, say, $8,000 and maybe $12,000 a year.
So is there a town supervisor or a mayor, or is there sometimes both? Or
so if there's a village, there's a mayor. If there is not a village, there's just a town supervisor.
Gotcha.
But with so use Cayuga County as an example. And this is something that people who watch our show sometimes get confused about. The legislature system is different in that they still have town supervisors. They just don't sit on the county board. So you have the legislative districts that operate separate of the towns themselves. So that the town supervisor effectively just deals with the town.
Okay.
But use Seneca, Wayne, and Ontario as your guiding light on that one, because they have a board of supervisors scenario where the supervisors for each town represent the county board as well.
Gotcha.
So they're serving on 2 boards, and they're effectively given all of the legislative control of not only their town but of their county too.
Yeah.
And that it's just for people who are, at the end of the day probably making, if they don't have a real job during the day, they're probably making less than $20,000 a year. And how good is your quality of elected official going to be if the salary is sub $20,000? And who is going to do that? That is going to be your retired folks,
right?
Your folks who are wealthy enough to quit their job, I guess.
Yeah.
And then your people, and this is a really small crowd, the people who are willing to walk away from a career, I guess.
Yeah.
For public service.
Yeah.
Which is a really admirable thing to do, but I don't think very realistic.
Right. It seems to me it should almost be younger people, enthusiastic, have a lot of energy, who might start as a town supervisor, really getting their hands dirty and really involved if they're planning on moving up to maybe then assemblyman or senator or whatnot.
And it seems like that's the way. I mean, that's the way it's working out in the 27th district. Chris Collins obviously being challenged by Nate McMurray. He is the town supervisor of a relatively small community, but a Democrat who has a pretty good chance now, given the craziness that's gone down with Representative Collins, obviously facing insider trading charges.
Do you think that's going to have a damning effect?
It has to. I mean, the polling, if you go by the polling, it shows that and I believe WHEC in Rochester just released a poll a couple nights ago that showed Collins still had a 7-point advantage. This is a guy who is literally going to be facing a court battle.
And he had announced at one point that he wasn't going to run anymore.
Yeah. So, and the conventional thinking on the Republican side is that he wins the seat to be a placeholder until a special election can happen next year when Republicans can win the seat back again. That's the thought process behind it, which is insane. For a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
I'm a registered Republican, but I don't agree with that type of philosophy at all.
Yeah, I think I need to research it a bit better. So he's going to go to trial?
Oh, he will have to. I'm not saying it's going to go to trial. That God only knows how that'll play out. But you're talking about a years-long court situation. Republicans have already stripped him of all his committee assignments in Congress, so he has nothing. Even if he's elected, he will have nothing to do. He has no committees to go to. He has no responsibilities other than just being
ideal.
Congressman. It sounds fantastic. It's wild to me that there are still, there again, listening to some of the AM talk shows, that they're, you get the people calling in, the lifelong Republicans who are saying, I cannot vote for a Democrat because I do not want them to get control of the House. So they're going to vote for a person who could very likely in a couple of years be a convicted.
Yeah, that's that tribalism that we're experiencing right now.
We've talked about that so much.
Yeah.
Do you believe, so I had seen a poll probably about a month ago now that said Republicans were like 30% entrenched and Democrats were like 10% entrenched, but then everyone else fell in the middle somewhere where they weren't really like, and do you believe it that there's really like 80 to 85% of the total voting adult population that isn't in that really like either far right or far left category?
Well, I think people are opting to be apolitical instead of getting involved in the tribalism that they see, especially on platforms like Facebook. Like I said earlier about voter turnout, I only think I can name like a handful of my friends that are going to go out and vote. They would just rather not get involved. It's so negative. But I don't know. See, I think it's really hard to tell. Because I can say what I see on Facebook, on social media, but then I also have to think the people who are more likely to share are the more extreme thinking. Not always, but that's who's most apt to share. So I don't feel like it's a really good poll. It's not a really good sample of the population. I don't know.
I mean, I guess I want to reframe the numbers. I guess I could see like 45 or 50% of the total population in the U.S. right now not being in that really polarized category. But I don't know. It seems like there's too much of it. Like we see too much of it on social media. Right. Not to think that it's damn close to a 50% majority at least.
Yeah. I don't know. I think there's such a large population now that really isn't interested at all. But man, I don't know. I almost think sometimes that it almost seems to me that people have adopted politics as their new religion. That's how strongly they feel about it. They can't stand being friends with somebody in the opposite party.
Meanwhile, religion has faded into the abyss. Nobody even it's hardly even discussed now.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's very possible that a lot of people are adopting it as their new religion. Why else wouldn't you be able to be friends with somebody with opposite political views as you?
See, I also don't understand that.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. Because I guess I haven't really seen that play out too much.
You haven't?
No.
I feel like I have.
Maybe I just don't have the right friends.
Yeah.
Because to me, it's like, at the end of the day, government moves so slowly and things change so slowly. Because even, hazard a guess that probably some of the more liberal folks or progressive folks who listen to this program will probably say I'm wrong, but I don't think that much has changed since President Trump became president. Honestly.
What I'm seeing is that everything's politicized. Celebrities are almost like need to have a political stance, athletes, everything,
But has that changed at all, the speed at which government happens?
Oh, no. I thought you were just talking about culture.
I get it. Like I see and I feel that too. But at the same time, like for all the people who thought that the world was going to stop spinning because Donald Trump became president, it hasn't. And now, you know, I had said when he was elected that he had 2 years to really get things done, because that was pretty much what President Obama had, 2 years before he lost one of the chambers. And it's history repeating itself, but nothing that you know, if the tax plan is the big thing, all the sunset provisions in that tax plan won't allow that much to change anyway.
Well, in my memory of politics, we've had just Democrats and just Republicans, but there used to be like liberal Republicans, conservative Democrats, and they would try to work together more in Congress to kind of get things moving faster. And now I feel like there is more of just that kind of trying to block each other.
It feels like to me that we have 4 political parties right now, excluding the non-traditional. So you have the far left, the far right, the middle left, and the middle right. And that I feel like, or the central middle and central left, that I feel like is pretty much where we're stuck right now. I don't, you know, and none of those groups really seem to be working together. I guess maybe the hope in the long term is that the 2 middle groups find a way to come together, because I think they represent the largest total number. Yeah. But it's interesting. I don't know. And so what do you think is after Election Day? Yeah. Take outcome out of the equation. When everybody wakes up on Wednesday, because we're going to be the only idiots staying up all night trying to find out who won, who lost, and everything like that. Yeah. What happens? Where does it go? Like, what happens next?
We'll probably be hearing from politicians less about coverage, right? After elections are over. Yeah.
For the average voter, though, are we going to see? Because I feel like it has to subside a little bit. Like it just has to, doesn't it? Like we can't keep this pace up. Right.
I don't know.
Maybe the discourse.
I think a lot of people will be relieved when it's over, because they won't be bombarded with the ads. But I don't know. It's really hard to tell. What's your prediction for how it's going to be?
My hope is that things get a little more civil, a little smoother, a little less chaotic. Yeah. My fear is that the intensity actually turns up. And that probably, I don't know if that would be aided by Democrats winning the House back, or if that might create a little bit of equilibrium. So everything just kind of tones down a bit. Maybe. I mean, I would hope for the country's sake, I guess, that happens. Because it does seem like we can't really take much more divide and divisiveness. Yeah. It doesn't seem like it.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like everyone who wins, gets their choice, is going to be happy. And I don't know, the way that things have been so divided and tribal, it kind of does seem like whoever loses, they're gonna...
Or hey, maybe, you know what, Wednesday morning we're going to be surprised and we're just going to start the political campaigns for 2020.
Yeah,
maybe. We're just going to start them on Wednesday. It'll last 2 full years. Yeah. We won't have to worry about any breaks or anything like that.
Maybe then we'll be dealing with who's going to announce their run for the presidency, the Democratic candidates. Maybe those will start coming out after midterms are done.
See, here's the thing. If I'm looking
it's always on to the next one.
If I am a politician in a high profile office, use the governor as an example, Governor Cuomo. I do not want to challenge Donald Trump halfway through his what would be 8 years in office. The incumbent has too much of it. Has too much firepower.
Yeah, that's true.
You are the governor of New York. I would have to imagine you're better as the governor of New York as you would be the losing candidate in
Right.
And it also, like, God willing, we see some younger, more energetic folks on both sides of the aisle get involved in the federal level, state, local level,
right.
across the board.
Yeah.
Because that really is the missing link.
Yeah.
And when it comes to, if we start talking about a crop or a field of candidates in 2020 on both sides who are plus 55 years old.
Right.
That is just that's not going to appeal to many people.
Yeah. And who's announced so far? Did Elizabeth Warren
I don't think anybody,
officially? Not officially?
She hasn't officially announced, but
yeah.
I think after her most recent, I think she uploaded it to YouTube first, which is kind of ironic. The video that she put out about her heritage, she really, that was tough on her. That whole news cycle was tough on her, so I'm not sure that she actually would make it out. Joe Biden is one of the names that we hear quite a bit, right? And that's interesting.
Yeah. Wait, who did you say?
Joe Biden.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me, that's interesting. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Because it's just, and I think that could also.
Do you think a fresh face would be better? Donald Trump was a fresh face. People liked that, not establishment. Do you think the Democrats need somebody who they don't consider an insider? Or do you think we need to get back to that type of candidate?
I think, especially if if the Democrats are successful in taking back the House, they will have to use this blueprint or playbook in 2020 to keep growing that if they want to seriously contend. They're going to have to find candidates like Tracy Mitrano, like Nate McMurray, who aren't that hard-feeling progressive candidate. They have progressive views, but they also have moderate views as well. Or at least know how to present themselves in such a way that it feels that way to the average person who isn't going, waist deep in policy and trying to understand what candidates are running on.
Right.
I think that has to happen. That'd probably be their best play.
Yeah. How do you find out about a candidate when they're running? I know, you and I, we get to talk to them one-on-one, so it's different. But what would you say to people if they wanted to learn more about the candidates? What do you think is the best way for them to find it out?
There aren't many good ways. Their websites tend to be one-sided, right?
Oh, yeah.
And actually, they're a missed opportunity, I think, for some candidates. Using Tracy Mitrano as an example, you go to her policy page, and the first thing it says is Southern. The first words on the page, I believe, are Southern Tier, while a portion of her district is not in the Southern Tier. And I think that turns voters off who are in the Finger Lakes, who are saying, wait a second, you're supposed to represent me too. I honestly, I think finding long form interviews, and I know nobody has any time for that. I get it.
Yeah.
You're working 2 jobs. You don't want to, listen to boring talk about policy. But it's the only time. My problem with debates, and I like debates in that you get two candidates next to each other. But what you get a lot in that is also sound bites. Yeah. And you get a lot of sort of pre-canned, packaged material, we'll call it.
Right.
The stuff that they've been saying. But if you get a candidate one-on-one, and I'm sure you've encountered this a million times too, you get a candidate one-on-one for like 35 or 40 minutes. All of a sudden they're an open book, and they're talking about, they're going in depth on policy and on things that you just don't hear about all the time.
Right.
When Congressman Reed was here on my program a couple weeks ago, we sort of got into the weeds on higher education, and started, he went into pretty, what I felt like was good depth, about the cost of higher education at private institutions and what they're actually, getting for that and what the college is getting out of it. And, it was just interesting because it wasn't something that I had ever heard before. So it was like, oh, this is different. And it feels like that's the only format you ever get that or can get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're guarded.
Yeah.
Understandably so.
Yeah, of course. So talking.
What about you? Do you think that is debate the vehicle?
I like debates. I don't know why. they invigorate me. I like seeing that. But, of course, and because interviews, when you ask, I don't know, because we wouldn't ask them a question and have to answer to them like they would to their opponent in a debate. That's why I kind of like that. It's tougher. I don't interview somebody and my intention is to bring them down or to catch them. That's what their opponent's trying to do. So it is good to see them under that pressure a little bit more than you or I interviewing them. That's why I like the debate. But yeah, I would say go to a town hall, talk to them one-on-one. That is the best way.
Corner them.
Corner them, yeah.
Talk to them yourself.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's best to talk to them yourself. Of course, yeah, no, interviews is a good way too, but I don't think looking at their website is necessarily the best way.
It's
the
hard,
flyers you get in the mail is not necessarily the best way. You definitely want to see... I don't know. I think there's a lot to be said in somebody's talking to somebody and seeing, like face to face, even their facial expressions or how they react off the cuff is really important. But I get that it's not necessarily convenient in someone's schedule to go out of their way to meet a candidate when they're in town. Doesn't always align with people's schedules, so it's tough.
Yeah, and my concern with rallies is that a lot of times they'll feel more like a or forum will feel more like a rally and less like a really meaningful in-depth, because you are still getting, you're covering you have like an hour and a half, and you're covering as many topics as you can, and maybe the candidate is talking for like 2 or 3 minutes on each one,
right?
And how in-depth are they really getting? It is interesting. I think when you can, probably the best idea is to really go to their website and read the policy documents that they upload.
Yeah.
Like, what are their actual plans?
Yeah.
Like, what are the nuts and bolts of their plans? How much are their plans going to cost?
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
The only reason I say town hall is because, if you have say you're voting on one issue is way more important to you than the rest. It maybe affects your child or something like that. Yeah. And you could come to a town hall with a real specific question, and hopefully their answers is very tailored to you. But I do think, there's something to be said about talking to somebody face to face, one-on-one.
Yeah, that's probably the best way that exists right now.
Yeah.
Until we have, until there is an independent debate commission, which is one of those flashy things that's always brought up. You always run the risk at debates of having bias. Obviously, folks in our industry work very hard to make sure that doesn't happen. Yeah. But sometimes, the governor's debate was a great example of that, where it seemed like or felt like for a lot of people that Governor Cuomo was calling the shots in his one-on-one debate with Mark Molinaro. That sort of thing doesn't leave voters feeling very confident in the system. Yeah,
that's why at first when we were doing the Chemung County executive debate, I started thinking, oh, well, we're not even from Chemung County. We're not even voting in this. Maybe we shouldn't be hosting this. But then when we got the questions from all the residents of Chemung County, I was fully confident, no, we're the best people to be hosting this because we can't vote in the Chemung County executive debate. So we're totally unbiased.
Isolated.
Is that a word? Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for coming in. Thanks for filling in. I'm sure we'll be having you back.
Yeah, no, I love this studio. It's a great setup. First time I've been in this building. It's really nice.
Yeah, it's an old school.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
It's been fun.
We will be back, or I will be back, along with 3 others on election night. We'll be doing our election night coverage.
Cool.
Like we do every single year. Until next time, though, keep listening, keep reading, and download the FingerLakes1.com app.